Knowledge Stack podcast. My name's Jason. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to share this episode with you. This is a conversation with Megan Forbes, a former colleague. We have a conversation about the challenges that young people are facing, trying to find their way and trying to establish themselves and their careers. It's a good conversation about how she started in the service industry, what her background is, and how she's figured out how to build her network and get comfortable in the corporate world and have some success at finding a career and getting started. So I'm really excited to talk about that with you and share that conversation with you. It's taken a little time to get it edited, but I think we're done and it's time to share it. The other thing I wanted to share is April 1st and 2nd, I will be a keynote panelist at the Credit Union Growth and Innovation Summit in Oak Brook, Illinois. I will be on the panel on the second day. The topic is how to future-proof your credit union. And as a technologist, you would imagine that most of my insight is going to be on technology, how to leverage technology, how to buy technology, how to implement technology. It's not. My view is that a lot of the challenges that credit unions and really any organization for that matter faces is lack of efficiency, lack of scaling, and really kind of taking a inward look at your organization to try and find ways to, at the very least, document your processes and try to find ways to eliminate processes that either don't need to exist or find ways to automate processes that, don't scale or can be improved. So that's my perspective. Doing critical thinking, doing root cause analysis, thinking about things like Six Sigma, I think go a long way. Way more than buying any bolt-on product or any widget that a technologist may say will apply AI or will uses machine learning to make you more efficient. That's all great, but automating an inefficient process is not efficient. So I'm going to have some conversation about that with a couple of other folks that are part of that panel. In the show notes below is a registration link. There's a discount code in there that you could use to save some money on your registration. This is an affiliate link. I don't make any money off of this conference. I'm flying out there on my own dime. This is not sponsored by my credit union. So this isn't a freebie. It's not a paid gig. This is something new that I want to kind of do more of. I guess it's me pushing my brand out there. So you'll see this on LinkedIn. I've already shared the information on the conference in LinkedIn. So if we're LinkedIn buddies, you've seen it. But the link will be below in the show notes. So if you're interested, please feel free to register. And I look forward to having a conversation with you out there in Oak Brook, AKA Chicago. One of the things that I'm certainly open to is if you reach out either on LinkedIn or in the show notes or via email or give me a phone call, I'd be happy to, schedule some time to talk about whatever you're interested in talking about, as long as it lines up with my vision of the podcast. I'm not the ShamWow guy. I'm not Billy Mays. I'm not selling you tape. I'm not going to get a boat that's been taped together and motor across a lake. That's not what the podcast is about. I'd be happy to, if you've got a product, if you've got a service that you think is beneficial, we can certainly figure out a way to have a conversation maybe with one of your clients about their journey in improving a process or system or service that they have that your product may have helped with. It's not going to be a sponsored ad. It's not going to be all plugs all day long, but we'll find a way to kind of talk about the challenges that an organization might face, and certainly we can discuss how a specific solution may have helped with that, but we'll talk about other solutions as well and talk with that other credit union or bank or fintech about what their journey was like to figure out, what they did to improve on that process. I'm very much a process guy. So reach out. We can certainly have a conversation. If it's, if I get the smarmy used car salesman vibe, it'll be no thanks, but I'm sure we can figure out a way to have a conversation about anything really. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to watch, listen. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. I'm also going to plug my newsletter on LinkedIn. There's a kind of a companion newsletter to this podcast. I just got back from GAC last week. There's a recap of each of those days. And then I've got a couple of other issues that are available. So go ahead and take a look. I'm not going to spam you. I don't sell your information. That's not what this is about. I'm just a guy trying to share some information. I've been doing this for a long time. I feel like I have something to share. You might think I'm full of it, and this is a waste of time, but it's my waste of time. So I hope you enjoy the episode with Megan. More to come. Thanks for watching and listening. Look forward to continuing the conversation on the knowledge stack. Thanks. Bye-bye. I am here with Megan Forbes. Megan and I used to work together at First Advantage. And, Megan is in a different generation than I am. So I'm curious to have a conversation with Megan about, careers and about, her journey in finding her career. While you were at First Advantage, we talked quite a bit about, LinkedIn and about building a network and stuff like that. And I thought I'm hoping that was helpful for you. And, I thought maybe it's an opportunity for you to share what you went through. And so I guess let's start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, give us your background. Where did you, go to school? Where'd you grow up?
Okay.
Give us your CV.
Of course. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here.
You're most welcome.
Happy to be here. A little bit about me is I was born in Connecticut. Parents separated, grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia. And as long as I can remember, my mom told me, you go to school, you get a degree, you become successful, get good grades, do the right thing, and then go to work. Make some money so you can have a better situation, something along the lines. So throughout school, I'm not going to lie, I was not a straight A student. I would try my hardest and I'd get a C. I don't know what it was. Maybe I didn't apply myself. Maybe it wasn't fully clicking like it would click for my younger brother, who I love him. He's currently in law school at Akron, Ohio. He's actually about to graduate this upcoming May.
Good for him.
Very happy for him.
How much older is he? Or wait, how much younger is he?
Younger, but I feel like he's my little big brother. He was born in 1999 and I was in 96. So it's in between that 2-3 year kind of gap. But he's taller than me, more fit than me, mentally small, smarter than me, it just depends. But in high school, I started a job actually at Farm Fresh Supermarkets as a cashier. And that was my first real world retail sales type of job. And at the time,
my first job was at an Arby's.
Really? Love the curly fries.
That was my first legal job. I had other jobs, but cash.
Got you, under the table.
Yes, 100%.
You come here, you do your
Washing
work, go home.
dishes, yes.
Yeah.
A really fancy restaurant, and it was like, they'd call you at 11 o'clock, and they'd say, hey, we need 2 people. So you'd show up, and you'd burn your hands on automatic dishwashing machines, and then your parents would have to come pick you up at 2 o'clock, and you'd get $50, and that was the best thing ever.
Yeah, and if a server liked you and you cleaned their table, they'd give you an extra $5 or $10.
Oh, if you ever got out into the dining room, that was the best thing ever. We were in the back. If you made it to the kitchen and you would make salads, that was a super big upgrade. Yeah. Yeah. And you'd get an extra couple of bucks just to do that. But then, you'd end up back in the,
And where was this?
kitchen.
Back in Jersey?
This was in Jersey. Yeah.
The glory days, huh?
Yep. Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
So cashiering, first job, kind of taught me about, other people's lives, their bills, their money. But I was the annoying kid that would go, oh, I see you're buying stuff for tacos. Is it taco night?
You were the chatty one.
I was. Then I learned my lines were always longer than everyone else's. I wonder why. Because I'm taking my time, learning my customers, making those relationships. So then I started thinking, what are you going to do with your life? So I actually went on a nursing realm where I thought I was going to go to nursing school. I started basic EMS training at Thomas Nelson because I wasn't ready for a big girl college.
Okay.
I didn't think I could get in. I didn't know how to really fully apply myself and prepare for that. So I did the kind of 2-2 transfer thing.
Did you do that right out of high school?
Right out of high school. Okay. Graduated 2014, and Mom said, okay, if you're not going to go to college, you're going to go to junior college.
So you're 17, 18, you got to do something, and that's what you decided
And you got to work. So I was moving from, I want to say, the cashier role, then to the restaurant lifestyle. Started hosting, started serving, bartending, worked my way up to like a front of house management, grew up, learned how to eat, learned how to drink, learned how to order the correct things and pay my bills on time. I remember one thing specifically. My mom actually was letting me use her Kia Sorento car, but I had to pay her a monthly car payment. Now, looking at that now, I wish I still had that monthly car payment compared to what I have today.
But it established that muscle memory.
Exactly. So once every paycheck, it was how much are you putting in your savings, and this is what you owe on the car. Now, at that time, mom was paying for a phone bill, clothes, regular food, life, shelter. Thank you, mom. But as I grew older, I started to kind of take on more and more as I could. Once that happened, I then went to Radford University after Thomas Nelson. Part of the reason why I went there was because I had a long boyfriend at the time. 3+ years. He was looking to go into the business school. That was the love of my life. I didn't want to leave him. So I said, I'll just look into the school. So my little brother actually had already said that's where he was going to go with his friend, lifelong friend who I know as Gigi, as that woman's grandmother.
Oh, yep.
But they were touring, and I went, and I fell in love with this campus. It was small. There wasn't that many buildings there, and there was a lot of dogs out on the grass in the green, and people were throwing frisbees and laying in those kind of pea hammocks, like in between the trees. And I was
That's cool.
I could take a nap here.
Very hippie, scene you're painting.
Yeah, and it was like summertime, sun on my face. Everyone's like, "Hi, welcome, da-da-da." And it just...
Cool.
It made me think, could I go to school here? So I applied, and what was funny is while we were touring, I was waiting on a decision. I wasn't on the wait list, but I hadn't heard. So when we went in, one of the ladies that was in the Waldron College of Nursing at the time, she came up to me and she goes, "What's your name?" And I said, "Please don't look me up in the system because I don't know if I've made it." And she goes, "Give me one moment." She goes to the admissions office, calls them up, looks me up, and then she goes, "Honey, you made it."
There you go.
So I found out there at the school. And of course, at the time, I thought that was a sign that this is where I'm supposed to be, have to go. So it was the boyfriend and myself, and I thought everything was great. So whatever, I'm there. And as I'm there, I'm learning more and more about myself. I was in nursing courses. I got into the nursing program. I also found out that I got into the nursing program during one of my chemistry classes, which was great. They had everybody check their emails because all the announcements went out. Now, there were some kids who you could tell that didn't get in. They would like excuse themselves, walk out of the class.
Oh,
but
that's
those
sad.
of us that did get in, I mean, our teacher was jumping up and down with joy. We all came in for like a big group hug. It was great. I found out that I got in, and I did 2 out of the 4 levels that are there. But the reason why I switched out of that is during the trainings, there were a lot of nurses that were our teachers, and they were just burnt out. And they would relay their stories of what to look forward to, but it wasn't a positive look forward. It was more of, you're going to have to deal with this, and you're going to have to deal with this. Now, with the pandemic that has happened, I 100% believe them, and I salute to them for what they do.
What kind of stuff,
They mentioned...
Like, what were you worried about? Like, the stuff. I mean, I would imagine if you were going to go into nursing, you already knew that you were going to deal with, blood and all that kind of stuff.
Death and diseases and awful,
But you were okay with that.
100%.
The other stuff.
It was never what I couldn't handle. It was more of like the team focus that I'm supposed to be goal-oriented to go into. Is that support going to be there? My next moving up. Do I want to become the charge nurse? Do I want to be the direct report of this person? I heard this person is tough. How long have they been tough? 10+ years. Okay, is that just who they are and that's who you want to strive to be? Oh no, you don't want to communicate with them because you'll never feel fulfilled. And it just was a lot of negative stuff. And I was young and naive, and I let other people get in my head. So I said, you know what? I'll take the credits I have. I'll put it into something generalized. So I got an interdisciplinary studies degree.
So how old were you when you were at Radford? Like, how you did 2 years at Thomas Nelson. Did you go right to Radford? Or did you have
I did. I technically did 3 years at Thomas Nelson. But I was 17 when I graduated high school. So 18, 19-ish, I was around the Thomas Nelson age. I want to say 20, 21 is around the age that I went there.
Okay.
I want to say I came home for a winter break, and it was my birthday, for my 21st birthday. Yeah.
And then you were like, I'm not going back.
I think at that time we were just wrapping up our degree. But what also was really nice about the school is I was what we call a student orientation leader.
Okay.
We called each other QAs, quest assistants, and that was the best summer job I could have ever had. I was working with new student and family programs, and it was like a paid summer internship, but I helped incoming freshmen and transfer students sign up for classes, learn about the school.
Cool.
I was their main point of contact when they came for that first semester. And a lot of them, I mean, to this day, I've seen through up to their graduation. I have them on social medias. They would randomly call me throughout the week to go, I hate this teacher, tell me what to do. Be like, I am lost, I don't know where this building is. Or, hey, I'm accidentally locked in a locker in the sports section. I don't know how to get out and no one is coming. Help me. That was an amazing job because that made me feel good because I also was a peer instructor. So I was a teacher's assistant where I had 20 to 30 kids that fully relied on me for grades, assignments, instructions. We did everything on D2L at the time online, but that's where everybody submitted everything. So I had to learn how to grade things, how to send it in at a timely manner, how to send it to the main professor for updates. And that kind of put that responsibility on my shoulder that I don't think I ever gave myself back in high school.
Okay.
Because I did cheerleading, I did theater, I had a boyfriend, I wanted to, you know, just have fun and be a kid. So this helped me grow up a lot. And being there all summer, like you're not with your parents, so you have to be responsible. What time are you going to go to bed so you can do that orientation tomorrow?
Yep.
How are you going to get paid? Are you doing direct deposit or are you doing a paper check? And where's the local bank? And how do you figure that out?
Yep.
So that kind of
practicing without a net.
yeah, that grew me up. And then when I graduated, I came home, but I had all that restaurant background. So since I didn't have a direct degree in a specific type of trade or area.
So what is your degree?
Interdisciplinary studies.
Okay.
It's a bachelor's.
Yep.
But I had main kind of concentrations in psychology and nursing.
Okay.
And that's where I actually started my American Sign Language minor.
Okay.
That was a fun ASL club. I fell in love with it. Fell in love with the deaf, hard of hearing, and
So
signing
that's where
communities.
you fell into the ASL stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then after I came home, I was working in the restaurant industry. Went back to management. I was working many, many hours. And that was nice too, because at that point, when you're there so much and you get your regular customers and you build the rapport, you feel good. You're not just there to serve somebody dinner. You're there to go, hey, how was it last week? Or, hey, I know you had a test. What were the results? What's going on? How are your kids?
When you had come back from Radford, you have your degree, you learned your skill, you're doing ASL stuff. Did you start doing interpreting and stuff like that immediately, or is that something that you kind of grew into a little bit more?
So at Radford, in the ASL club, it was wonderful. The way that I cannot remember the names of the presidents at the time, but in that club, they were hearing and deaf individuals. Some had cochlear implants, some had hearing aids, some were nonverbal, kind of mute, some actually spoke. And they did fun events with the local cities like Christiansburg and Pulaski and Roanoke. All these people would come to the university on our main quad where the food was, and we'd have pizza parties. We would do t-shirt sales that would say like ASL Club and the name on the back and a logo that shows signing hands. It was beautiful. With that and the basic signs outside of my ASL level 1 and 2 classes, that was the most signing I had. And I wasn't confident then. Like I knew them. I knew that I knew them. But full conversation wasn't a thing.
Working without a net.
And
It's hard to make that jump.
Yeah, because you go and you stand in front of a person and you go, I know sign language. And they go on. And then blank. You don't know any sign. You don't know how to spell your name. And then you go and your hand is shaking and it's bouncing and you don't know how to do it all. And a million thoughts go through your head. But then once I graduated, that kind of stopped. But one thing that stuck with me is my level 2 teacher, Jessica Myers. I will never forget her. She was deaf in one ear, she said, so she didn't fully identify as deaf. She identified as hard of hearing. But she told me, you have a beautiful signing style. So just think about this in the longevity. If you're falling back on something, look into interpreting. And it was a casual, like she asked me to stay back after class. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I was on my phone or something, or I did really bad on a test. So I'm sitting there sweating in my seat. And she comes and sits down next to me. My heart is just pumping. I don't know what to expect. And she says the nicest thing. So I said, okay, that's fine. I learned the situation of she's actually giving you something good. She's, saying, hey, you're actually good at something. Like, look into it. So I'm not going to lie, in that moment, there was so much going on of, am I going to stay in nursing school? Do I want to play a sport? Am I going to live here? My little brother was there at the time, and then he transferred to a new university. So I said, what am I doing here? Am I just here in a shadow that I thought that I was, or do I have a plan? Well, then I moved home, and as I had mentioned, I was working in the restaurant industry, but there was no sign language. So I did some research. I found some programs. I actually interviewed with a teacher at J. Sargent Reynolds Community College and got screened to see what my proficiency level was. And when that happened, they told me I was a intermediate. I knew enough, but I had a way to go. And I said, okay. So they recommended certain programs online. And that's when I found my Tidewater Community College program that I'm in now. And fun fact, that started during COVID. Because I was bored in the house and in the house bored. Locked in, couldn't go anywhere. I found out what I needed. And because I had community college and a bachelor's, a lot of the kind of requisite credits, they were already taken care of. So it'd be strictly language, culture, interpreting.
That's cool.
So that started in 2020, and I've been going ever since.
So when you came back, you were doing the restaurant gigs, and what was your thought when you came back? Like, did you feel like that was what you're going to do? Were you thinking about, like, what's my career? Like, did you always feel like you were going to be in a service industry? Like, what was going through your head when you came back and, like, you just got into school, you had all these amazing experiences, and then you're literally back at the same place you were when you left, maybe a different place, but same sort of job. How'd you feel about that?
I kind of battled with myself because I had that thought of, wow, like 2 to 3 years, almost 4 years just went by. I'm doing the same thing.
Right.
But I always knew some people don't even get a high school degree.
Sure.
Some people don't get an associate's before they get a bachelor's. So you have that. But what are we doing with that? So I just constantly worked because, the rule was, hey, you're working or you're going to school. So I was learning, trying to, build up a savings, trying to also at the same time assert my independence with, my parents and showing that I'm a grown up. I don't need a curfew. I don't
And
need
you're
you
21, 22. You know
and
everything.
this is, of course, and this was after, going to a college where you learn how to, have fun. You learn how to stay up late and do some reckless things. So coming home and now having a mom, that's like, hey,
what time you coming home?
Yeah, the restaurant closes at this time. Where are you?
Yep.
The first thought is, don't worry about it. But
I'm
at the
fine.
same time, that's your mom. And she's been missing you for so many years. And now you got to go back to some type of schedule, not because she's trying to control you, but because you're an adult now.
And plus, she wants to go to bed.
Yeah, and me making noise in the kitchen, heating up some ramen noodles, that's not it. But I kind of battled with myself because I didn't really know. But I did know I'm a good server. I know I have customer service. I know I have that bedside rapport. I know I have that patient, doctor, nurse kind of connection where I can make a friend in any room that I walk in. Now, granted, does everyone want to be my friend? Probably not. But I know I can do it. So I knew hostess with the mostest Megan could easily get some type of job. But I was a go-getter because now I've seen, because at Radford, they have an amazing business program. And I had a few friends that went through their business program. So I would go to that main hall. At the time, it was called Kyle or Kobe, Center for Business and Economics, depended on who you asked what the name of the hall was. But I'd go in there, I'd go to the stock room, I would walk by the classrooms and hear what they were preaching to their students, and it inspired me to do something. So in the restaurant industry, I was a front of house assistant manager, but I started learning how to order beer, wine, and liquor. I would meet the vendors. I would go to pop-up events. When we would have catering events, even if I wasn't scheduled, I'd casually be in the neighborhood and pop in, because I wanted them to see my face, know who I was, what I was doing. And I did that for about 3-ish years.
Okay.
And then kind of ventured out into other kind of food services like Paradise Ocean Club. I also was doing like private dining back when I was younger in military, like assisted convalescent type home. And And I kind of just ranged. I also worked at a sports bar over on
Mhm.
the other side of the water. It was
Mhm.
Baxter's,
Mhm.
same owner of Paradise Ocean Club. And that was fun because that was nightlife. That was DJ. That was people coming in till
And you're
2 in the
22.
morning. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, you're young. You think you
Yep.
can hang out. And
Oh, yeah.
once it closes, you go somewhere
Mhm.
else with everyone. And
Yep.
it taught me.
Mhm.
How can you handle this and then go to do another open shift the very next
Yep.
day at a different place?
Mhm.
So
100%.
I was battling with that to kind of, are we grown up? What are we
Mhm.
doing? Let's put our name out here. Let's be more professional. But at that time, my LinkedIn was not a thing.
Mhm.
How I put my titles online, that
Mhm.
was not a thing. It was, hey, here's my number. You
Mhm.
know, if you need me, you need me. I'll do a
Sure.
great job.
Yep.
And that was really it.
Well, you know what's interesting is you always hear like the millennials and Gen Z, they always complain about hustle culture. Like, I don't want to be a 9 to 5. Like, I don't want to work myself to death.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you're kind of bucking that trend a little bit. You're a go-getter. You're doing, whatever you can do to get ahead, or, even just keep your head above water. Do you think the hustle
Growing,
culture thing gets a bad rap? Like, where do you draw the line between hustle culture and working hard?
growing up, I always made this comment to other
Mhm.
people. The people who would recognize, like, hey, you work hard. Like, you know, your knuckles are bloody. You've got calluses on your hands. Like,
Sure.
so you've been doing this a while.
Mhm.
And they'll ask you, how old are you?
Mm-hmm.
Because how I look and what my age actually is very different.
Sure.
Or when you talk to me on the phone and then you meet me in person,
Mm-hmm.
very different.
Yep.
I used to say the comment, I was robbed of my generation. I used to say that time and time again. Now, there are many people in my generation that are hard workers.
Sure.
They put their all into everything. They
Mhm.
have a process. If you ask them, hey, what's your favorite template that you use for this, this, and this?
Mhm.
They've got color-coded,
Sure.
highlighted, underlined, italic, whatever it is,
Mhm.
they've got it.
Yep.
And those are the people that are the diamonds in the rough.
Sure.
But then you have other people,
Mm-hmm.
and other people are, you know, laid back. Entitled is a word that comes out a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that word has been thrown around.
Sure.
Some people, they could be,
Mm-hmm.
but they have the mindset of what they think that they deserve just based on the emotional aspect of
Sure.
it. I want you to respect me,
Mm-hmm.
even though we're different ages, but I'm not
Right.
going to show you respect first because you have to do it to me to
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe whether I know you or not, I'm going to show you respect.
Sure.
Now, if by chance you rubbed me the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
I would take a mental note of that.
Mm-hmm.
Some generational friends,
Mm-hmm.
they'll go, okay, well, I don't want to talk to that guy.
Right.
I didn't
You're
like
dead
it.
to me.
I have a deep feeling in my gut. It just wasn't it for me.
Mhm.
No thanks.
Right.
Not today, Satan. But then you have the other ones that go, hey, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm going to talk it out. I'm going to see how this next
Yep.
event goes. And if it's the same, then I'm going to go, hey, did I do something?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the other people as well who they might feel that way and want to, but they don't have that fire to go, hey, Jason, like, you gave me this look earlier. What does that mean?
Right.
Because they don't want to be confrontational and they don't want to stir the pot.
Sure. Who's to blame for the hustle culture and the belief that like working hard is a problem?
The other part of hustle culture
Mhm.
will stem from the music we listen to, the famous
Are you a
pop
boomer?
stars. I'm just saying, like, if you really listen
Mhm.
to any genre,
Mhm.
they always make comments about other people,
Mm-hmm.
their cars,
Sure.
their drinks, the
Mhm.
money they have, what they're doing, who they're doing it with,
Yep.
the trips they have.
For sure.
And when you grow up and you listen to that, people in my generation, we turn this to a meme.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say a short little sentence in regards to like picking up a wad of cash and putting it next to our face and going, hello?
Mm-hmm.
That's something, how did you get all that money? You know, whether you're working hard at your 9 to 5 and saving up, or if you just had opportunities.
So there's a lot of people think that, social media is, to blame for a lot of this stuff. There's I guess he's I don't know, he's a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't remember which, but his name's Jonathan Haidt. He's written a couple of books, but he wrote this about Gen Z. And before I read that, I'm going to go back to what you said about like there's some Gen Z that are, yes, they're into the hustle culture, and then there's the lazy ones. You have that with all the generations.
Yeah.
It's no different. But I think with Gen Z and millennials, and I think you're more millennial than Gen Z. I think Gen Z is a little younger, but The millennials and Gen Z, I think, are extremes. Like you've got the folks that are working hard,
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs looking to make money, starting businesses, self-made and, very successful. And then you've got the ones that are 35 years old in their parents' basement and they can't not play Fortnite every day. Like it's there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of middle ground. It's one or the
Mm-hmm.
other. So it's kind of interesting. So one of the things, and this I took this from an article on. I'll link it in the show notes, but it says Gen Z has received the most structure and attention throughout their upbringing in comparison to previous generations. And the pre-organized play dates, ongoing extracurriculars, soft-handed critiques have inhibited their ability to develop grit and gumption. Height's not alone in raising these concerns. Autonomous play and independent study are largely foreign concepts to Gen Z, which is why skill sets related to critical thinking and social interaction warrant attention. Um, he's written a lot about the impact of social media, the impact of like seeing, like having access to social media. And, if you're in high school or, you're in your 20s and all you see on Instagram or TikTok or whatever is all these people having these amazing lives, what kind of impact does that have on your psyche? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like I'm in my parents' basement right now. Like I just feel horrible about myself and
You would
that's your
think.
life. So you can kind of understand why it's so hard for some of them to get over that hump
Mm-hmm.
because, they're constantly being inundated by all of this stuff and they can't get off of it. It's just like they don't have those interactions.
Yeah.
Somebody said um, the younger generation, like we overprotected in the home, but underprotect. Got that backwards. Overprotected outside the home, but underprotected in the home.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in the house, just take your device and go in the basement, go to your room and do whatever you're going to do. Then you're, on social media, you're doing nothing but that.
Yeah.
But then you go outside, to play, free play. You go outside, you want to hang out with your friends, and it's like you gotta be home by 5 o'clock. Like, don't fall
Who are you
down.
going with? When are you gonna
Yeah,
come
like
back?
all of this
What are you
stuff,
doing?
like don't cross the street. You got to stay like on our block. Don't leave the
Yeah.
yard. Like so kids today aren't given the opportunity to fail for one and put themselves in a situation where they have to, interact with others and be like, is that dangerous? Should I not do that? Yeah, I probably
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't do that. They
Yeah.
don't have that. So they get out into the real world and they're like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And then they just shut down and they're like, I'm going to go play Fortnite,
Yeah.
So the generational thing is interesting to me. And I keep reading tons and tons and stuff about the generational stuff. And, it's, you're definitely not the cookie cutter millennial, older Gen Z, um, and it kind of shows. And I wonder if that's the reason for some of your success, or being able to be where you're at now. So you went to school, you got your degree, you came back, you're doing some service jobs, you do that for a while. What are you thinking? Doing those things that you just described for, how many years? A year or two? 4 years after
For,
you came back?
I mean, it's still ongoing.
Okay. So you're doing those things. You're at work. Are you thinking, how do I start my career?
Mm,
Or are you like, this is my career. This is it. I'm in service. I'm going to do
mm-hmm.
service and I find other gigs and I do those other gigs. Or
Yeah.
are you thinking about like, where do I get that job where I'm starting to contribute to a 401k and I've
Right.
got health insurance and I don't have to worry about tips and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. I don't have to worry about, the closing opening thing. I don't have to do any of that stuff. Like when can I just start like I got a salary now. I don't have to
Yeah.
punch a clock. I don't have hours. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, is that going through your mind? Like you get up at, 5 o'clock in the afternoon for a long night and you're like, I gotta go to work. I'm hourly. Guys, can I just? I like. What's going through your head?
Well, one thing I want to say before I forget
Mm-hmm.
is going back to what you just said about inside and outside the house.
Mm-hmm.
I will say my mom was a very hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
She worked, multiple jobs, was a single parent for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think watching her doing that,
Mm-hmm.
striving to do the best that she could, even if we didn't have that sit down conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed it.
Oh yeah.
My friends
Yep.
who had, like separate parents, but I
Yep.
saw like what jobs they
Mm-hmm.
had. I could see around the house, like we weren't the most well off,
Mm-hmm.
but we weren't, multiple families all living in one house together,
Right.
like our neighbor down the street.
Yep.
So I think, at least for me, I
Mm-hmm.
picked up on other social cues by
Sure.
my friends, my own family.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember we had an economics class
Mm-hmm.
in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that teacher, Mrs. Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember she went out for like 2 weeks because she was pregnant and had her child.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that I couldn't remember anything from the class
Mm-hmm.
once it ended. And apparently we learned about how to pay bills. We learned how to write a check. We learned about
And this was
what
in high school?
taxes. This was in middle school.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Don't remember it.
Mm.
And then when you go and you take I think it's your ACTs and your SATs, and you
Mhm.
have to sign the front of the pamphlet in
Mhm.
cursive
Mm-hmm.
only.
Mm-hmm.
I remember everyone, their minds were blown. If I haven't had to do this since like elementary school.
Yeah.
And I just remember at that moment it clicked of, am I the most educated I could be?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I just here doing the motions and doing what my friends are doing?
Yep.
So you reading that and bringing that back up with me as an adult,
Mhm.
I do wish when I was in community college taking my English and my ITE classes,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was taking the other kind of basic requisition courses, I wish someone told me, take a business class.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it
Yep.
didn't fall within my curriculum.
Sure.
So I didn't.
Yep.
So then to kind of answer this next question, that career head start, 401k, taxes, do I want to get married? Do I want to have kids?
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Mm-hmm.
that was not a conversation until First Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just due to the fact of just a few facts. When you work in the restaurant life,
Mm-hmm.
some restaurants do offer benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them do not, because
Right.
number one, you don't work enough hours,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the minimum wage that your servers and your bartenders are paid,
Yep.
by the time those taxes come out for the hours that you're working,
Yep.
you're relying on a tip.
Exactly.
So then you take me
Mhm.
and you go, I want to be big, I want to be a manager. You start taking on management roles, and yeah, your pay is higher,
Right.
but you still don't work enough hours at that higher pay to
Yep.
get that general manager salary.
Right.
So that was never a question for
Mhm.
me. A health insurance,
Yep.
I was also young.
Mm-hmm.
So up until that golden 26 number,
Yep.
I was on my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I think.
And you didn't probably need it as much either. That's the whole benefit
No,
to it.
I'm
Mhm.
young.
Yep.
I'm okay. Nothing has
Mhm.
ever happened. I go to the doctor once a year to get my yearly physical. And the worst thing that they say is, hey, we went up 2 pounds. What are we doing?
Take a multivitamin, you know.
Yeah, be like, how's the diet going?
Yep.
That's a whole different
Mhm.
conversation. So, but that was it at the time. So, like, to answer your question, like 401k, this for me as a 28-year-old,
Yep.
this happened within the last 3 to 4 years.
Mhm.
And I remember I had a wonderful kind of coworker team
Mhm.
where I sat down in front of them and said, I know you're not supposed to kind of open up and tell everybody everything, but I need you to walk me through this because I don't even know what it's saying to me.
Mhm.
And I was embarrassed because I'm working for a very well-respected credit union,
Mhm.
and I'm in the role I was in, I was helping people get jobs and
Sure.
explaining benefits.
Yep.
And it was to the point where I'm like, do I even know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So
Right.
I took online like courses through like YouTube University.
You were
Love
hustling.
them. And I wanted to learn because I didn't want to ever sit across someone
Mhm.
and spute something out where if they go, hey, but can you go deeper? And I go, actually, let me give you someone else.
Right.
I
Yep.
wanted to answer those questions.
Mhm.
So in my role, that had nothing to do with direct benefits or
Mhm.
nothing to do with direct paychecks, payroll.
Sure.
But I learned as much as I could
Mhm.
because God forbid those people were not available.
Mhm.
I wanted to be able to at least give you that basis understanding and
Mhm.
send you in the right direction.
Well, I think that's a, that's something we as Americans, the government, the United States, whatever, I think it's something we need to do a better job at. Because if you start at 20, I mean, even if you're contributing, $1 or $5,
Mhm.
like, for a 20-year-old that's just, is trying to decide whether or not, I can go to McDonald's or pay my gas to get to work. Like,
Mhm.
it's hard to even set aside $5. But if you can find a way to set aside some money, if there's 4 savings, when you're you lost 8 years. Like, you're 28, you start contributing to a 401. That 8 years is hundreds of thousands of dollars when you're,
Yeah.
in your 70s and getting ready to retire.
Mhm.
Like, it's and I tell my kids the same thing. Your greatest asset is the 40, 50 years you have before retirement, because uh, no matter what, any dollar amount that you can put away, it compounds, it compounds, it compounds. And, you know, anything. Whenever anybody asks me for any sort of advice about, finances or anything like that, that is the very first thing. Like, our granddaughter, is 4 months old, 5 months. I don't even, not
And
good with
she's
ages.
fresh.
I mean, now is the time to start saving, because if you set up some assets for her, that's
By
20
the time
years.
she's
It's gonna,
18,
I
20.
mean, that's money for college. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not gonna, like she's not gonna have $1 million when she's 18 years old, but
Right.
that's money that she could use for school or books, or,
Yeah.
or maybe she decides she's not gonna go to school. But, you know, the class that you took in middle school, I think is super important, but I think middle school is probably a little bit too young for that. Like, I think that should probably be a high school course.
Now,
Like,
granted, were there probably courses I probably could have
mhm.
taken? Most definitely.
Oh yeah, but I think it needs to be a
Most definitely.
requirement.
But again, at
Mhm.
that time,
Yep.
I mean, my mom was on it.
Mm-hmm.
She made sure, because I
Yep.
don't know about other high schools, but for the
Mm-hmm.
one that I went to,
Mm-hmm.
you had your general studies
Yep.
or an advanced diploma.
Mm-hmm.
My mom said, we get advances. So I had to take so many years of a language. I
Mm-hmm.
took all my gen eds.
Yep.
I had to take the driver's ed so I could
Mm-hmm.
get my permit. She made sure I did all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like me and her sat down and she said, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like at that time, I just didn't apply myself. I didn't care that much. I was just young, and it's
Yep.
nothing against her
Mm-hmm.
or her parenting. She did everything she could because
Yep.
she's that go-getter.
Mm-hmm.
She's the hustler.
Oh
She's
yeah.
probably where I get
Mm-hmm.
all my driven, goals and a little bit of the OCD and
Mm-hmm. 100%.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I get it from my parents too.
Yeah, and I learned it
100%.
from her because I
Mm-hmm.
saw how hard she worked,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to be like her. I never
Yep.
tell her that, but I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
like her.
Yep.
And there was probably other classes I could have taken.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned, once we're in community college and you take electives that you like,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we also just take this just for general knowledge?
Yeah.
And that's what, like today, when I see people getting all those certifications on LinkedIn and a
Mm-hmm.
general Microsoft Office suite,
Yep.
or for this specific,
Mm-hmm.
or just connecting your principals with your LinkedIn connections. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
sign me up.
Yep. Those are all great. I think they should make financial literacy a requirement.
Yeah.
You have to have that in high school, just period. Because whether you're going to be a blue collar or white collar person,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. I think it's the same lesson: learning how to pay your bills, learning what the impact is of having bad credit, learning
Mm-hmm.
all of those sorts of things are super important. Like, I was stupid. When I was a kid, I had all the credit cards. Like, you're probably too young to remember this, but back in the day, we had Columbia House. It was technically Columbia House Records, but they had they would send you CDs in the mail.
Mm.
And they would always send, it's weird the way they used to do this, but they used to have this big, like, I don't know, piece of paper, and they'd have these stamps, like postage stamps, right? And you'd like tear off and it would be like the CD cover, the album cover for a particular CD or album, and you'd place like 8 of them. And what they do is they'd say 8 CDs for $1, right? You're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, a deal.
But you have to subscribe for a certain number of months, and
Which
you
is
have to
what,
pay
like $19.99
something like that. Yeah. So, I would do that, and I would get, oh yeah, I want those 8. I'll get those 8. And oh my God, there's a 12 for one. I only have to pay. All right, I'm going to buy one. I'm getting 12 CDs, and I'd probably still have the CDs.
I
Might
bet
even
you
be some
still have the
cassettes too.
CDs.
Like, it was pretty old school. So I got these things and I mailed it in. It was awesome. And there was Columbia House, and there was another one. The other one was the cheaper one, or like there were 2 different. I can't remember the name of I'll have to look it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't pay that bill, and then I learned about collections and how collections
Mm-hmm.
works, and then I was bad credit because I had these CDs, and it was free CDs.
Yeah.
And then when I was going to college, this is like right out of high school, this was the time where they were just basically throwing credit cards at kids. Like, you'd go on campus, you're in the bookstore, and you're like,
And
I
they
gotta
have
buy
a table
books,
set up, and
and they're like, you want a credit card? All right, here's $2,500. just throwing cards at you.
Yeah.
Like, just here you go.
Because you didn't know better.
I had no idea. What's the interest rate? I don't know. I didn't ask
Yeah.
that question, but it was like 35% or some
Yeah.
nonsense. And
I never
of
knew
course,
what an interest rate was
I,
until after
Yeah.
graduation,
Just-
after the loans.
I mean, I can just pay with this. Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep the cash. I'm gonna go out tonight.
Yeah. The more
yeah.
you use it, the more money you get.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. So I screwed myself
Yeah.
royally. Like when I got my first professional job, when I got my first real job at like a credit union, this was 30 years ago. Like I had to like write a letter to explain why my credit report was garbage. Like, I was dumb and it was like old stuff and I'm paying it off. Like I had to like come clean with them, and it was a reality check, and
Yeah.
it took a decade to clean all that nonsense up.
Yeah.
So if I had the opportunity to learn, I probably still would have been stupid. I probably still would have done that. I dropped out of college because I was commuting, and I took a Saturday morning gym class. Like it was a physical education class.
Or you
And how
speed walking?
stupid was that? I'm like,
Just to
like,
do something.
I lived like 40 minutes away from the school too, so it wasn't like I could just roll out of bed and go to the class. But I never made it, so I failed that class. I'm like, I don't. And then I got like a government class after that. I was like, I'm not gonna go. So I ended up, my GPA was okay, and then I just crashed and burned. It
Yeah.
was just like, and that I learned, and if I had the 10 years basically between high school and when I started like a real job, wasn't quite 10 years, probably 8 years, but if I would have started that a little bit earlier, where would I be now? But
Yeah.
I'd be a different person, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't regret any of that stuff. It's just I really wish I would have started 401k earlier. I really wish I would have like started investing money earlier.
Yeah.
And, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
if I can help, other people and tell them, hey, look, whatever you can, just don't even pay attention to
You
it.
absolutely can.
Just figure it out.
You alone.
Oh, I do it all the time.
I'm saying, I mean, I bet you do. But I mean, like the type of person that you are, you're the type of person that we want to talk to.
Sure.
We don't want to sit.
Tell your friends. There's another chair.
Come on. I'd be like, we're just going to go. Just don't worry about where we're going. Just know it's worth it. It's fine.
You're going to go to some guy's garage and you're going to talk about weird money stuff. Yeah, that's going to be
Fun
weird.
fact,
That'll go over well.
that's all you really got to say. Be like, listen, I'll drive. And just don't worry about it. It'll be worth it. And they go, okay. And they get in the car. That's the good thing about my generation.
We'll just give them a drink.
Pretty
It's
easy
fine.
going. It's
Yes.
fine. But I will say, like, with that, like, you are that type of person because what us younger people don't want is someone that's going to talk to me to make me feel like I'm overwhelmed. I don't know the words that you're saying.
Right.
I'm not you. I'm not going to do what you're saying. But if you can break it down into a way that we can understand and digest, and you can relate it to what we've got going on, I mean, that's the best thing to do. And I mean, going back to what I said about it started for me at First Advantage, it actually really started when I was working more with the money itself, looking into people's accounts, having those day-to-day conversations, whether they're here to pay a bill or calling in to go, hey, what's the interest rate on this CD? Okay, well, what's a CD?
Yeah, that's a
and
good point.
Who told you to do this CD?
Yep.
Oh, well, I just saw it online. Oh, well, great. So then you get trained and you learn what a CD is. And are we the only place that has a CD? No. So there's other, things that me, young Megan, who is still learning myself as an adult, I remember I had a deep conversation with one of my mentors at First Advantage. And I said, I just had a full-fledged, and this was great because it was actually with a deaf member that came in. I had a full-fledged conversation, super important deal with good, important people that were sitting in the office. But I have no idea what I just interpreted. I interpreted word for word what, the member was saying and the person who worked at First Advantage. And I remember that they were saying certain things and I was finger spelling out the words and describing the product and the service. I mean, I did everything perfect. But when I left that office, I had no idea what that was referring to. It was a more specialized type option. So I did my research. At the moment I left that office, went on the computer, looked through everything I had, and I said, oh, we're recommending this. And Me, Megan Forbes, 20-something-year-old, at the time who didn't have a house,
Mm-hmm.
who had a car, that was my
Right.
first big girl payment, but didn't have multiple things attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
or a loan on top of a loan, or an
Mm-hmm.
extension, or this type of specialty account. And I'm talking about it and learning about it. And how can me, 20-something-year-old, sit in a
Mm-hmm.
room with someone who's 60-something, who's got 40-something years of finances behind them,
Mm-hmm.
and then me go, well, you should just do this.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetheart, how do you know?
Right.
And that was very leveling for
Mhm.
me because I wanted to be the best representative I could.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when that hustle culture came in. Let me learn.
So how do you feel about, like, you obviously got your start in HR at First Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
How, I mean, and HR is almost like the professional version of the service industry. Like,
Yes.
you're not waiting tables, you're not serving bar,
Mm-hmm.
you're, you're sitting down with people in an interview, you're talking
Yes.
about benefits, you're, trying to place people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it seems like, you've kind of found your jam
Mm-hmm.
that's real similar to the existing jam that you had, and
Yeah.
that kind of worked out pretty well.
It did.
How do you feel about HR? You think that's your thing? Are you all in on HR now?
I love HR.
Cool.
I love HR.
Mm-hmm.
I will say there are very similar characteristics of
Mhm.
someone who is a hostess with the mostest,
Mhm.
your cashier who's a little over emotional in regards to, oh, you're buying pet food this week, but you didn't have it next week. Did we get it? Or the last week, did we get a dog? Like, there's that emotional connection, but there's also that, hey, be professional, be black and white.
Mhm.
Don't be too connected to someone.
Mhm.
And that was, I think I have the toxic of being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
I like being told, hey, let's not do this way. Let's do it this way. Let's improve. Let's be better.
Okay.
And I think when I found that wall of, hey, you can connect with people, but it's black and white and
Mhm.
there's a gray.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to learn that gray because that gray moves. It's static. It's
Sure.
big. It's small. It's multicolored. And with the gray, some things you can read a line and go, I'm going to follow this. However, there's this case where this isn't as black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I struggled with that because there were times that I would go back to the words to go, this is what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but not every one thing is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And HR challenged me.
Mhm.
HR brought me to be that close person that can talk to someone on the phone to help them get a job.
Mhm.
But then kind of going back to what you said about explaining credit. There were many, many times that unfortunately I had to have the tough conversation to go, hey, what's going on?
Mhm.
This is what came up.
Mhm.
This might not be a best fit. Let me hear from you. What's the plan?
Mhm.
What are you looking that I can give you? And that was a very educational, insightful conversation the many, many times that I did it.
Okay.
Because I would hear things that I never once knew about, like someone filing for bankruptcy,
Mm-hmm.
which chapter that is.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for
Mhm.
each chapter? Are you able to be employed?
Mhm.
When did this happen? What
Mhm.
was the circumstance?
Mhm.
And it kind of trends into, other things, divorce,
Mhm.
dependents, your taxes, your benefits, what you're looking for out of a job. Are you going to school to get a degree? Is this a part-time thing for you? Is this a full-time thing?
Mhm.
Is this your end game?
Right.
Then you get off the phone, you go, is this my end game?
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with it because it challenged me.
Okay.
And I think in my role that I am in now, I still dabble into it.
Mhm.
I'm looking to grow even more.
Okay. What
Oh.
part of HR would you say you like the most? I mean, are you
Mm,
leaning more towards recruiting or benefits, or, like, if you had to pick one?
I know. Been thinking about it a
Mhm.
lot lately.
Mhm.
I think my next step would be a generalized
Mhm.
type role.
Okay.
Get my feet wet,
Mhm.
see what clicks,
Mhm.
see what I like. I will say in my past experience,
Mhm.
I sat in on both the benefits focus.
Mhm.
I sat in on the employee relations focus.
Mhm.
I sat in on the management focus
Mhm.
and payroll and systems. And I am a student at heart. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm working on my 3rd degree right now that's definitely not needed. I just want it.
What degree?
American Sign Language and English Interpretation.
Interesting.
So with that, there's a lot of logistics and mannerisms
Mhm.
and body reading
Mhm.
and a lot
Getting
of,
rid of the lisp.
yeah, as I said, logistics with a
Mhm.
lisp. But it's a lot that goes into semantics,
Mhm.
how you speak with someone, how you
Mhm.
best can interact.
Hmm.
And I take that into a professional conversation when I assist sitting in
Mhm.
someone else's interview and
Mhm.
I'm taking notes and I notice that that interviewee looks over at me, do I look at them and smile and make
Mhm.
them feel like the interview's going well?
Mhm.
Do I look like a robot and just keep typing because I don't want to be there?
Mhm.
Do I sit at the table with them or do I sit away? You know, it's kind of,
Mhm.
it all snowballs into many, many experiences and thoughts for me. So,
So when you were at First Advantage, you sat in on some of the interviews that we did in IT, and I would
yes,
imagine you did the same. You were ridiculous with your interview notes,
it's a lot. Some
I
people appreciate it.
like word for word. It was kind of ridiculous. Like I don't know how the hell. And before we started recording, we were talking about your ASL stuff, and
Yeah.
you'd explained that you're taking notes and signing at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
like right now the computer is recording like 4 different cameras, and I kind of see it the same way. Like your brain is somehow ingesting what you're hearing,
Mm-hmm.
you're still writing it, and you're keeping up with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the hell you did it, but it was phenomenal, some of the notes that you took, like
Thank you.
almost word for word. So I'm curious, obviously without names or any
Mm-hmm.
specifics, um, what's something you learned during an interview from any of the interviews that you've done, either at First Advantage or after First Advantage, um, while you're sitting in on these interviews. You're not obviously participating in the interview, you're just sort of documenting.
Mm-hmm.
But can you give me kind of an example of something you learned during the interview? Maybe
Yeah.
it's a mannerism from a candidate, or a, a particular question that the interviewer had asked.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to sit in on a plethora
Mhm.
of interviews. These could be department specific. This could be retail sales
Mhm.
focus. This could be specialized higher up type of role
Mhm.
where, young me who started in an entry level position,
Mhm.
who took an adult role, who's still learning and growing. I mean,
Mhm.
that was such an opportunity. And I'm number one, thank you First Advantage for the opportunity
Mhm.
because that taught me so much that I can't even put it into words.
Mhm.
And there's some people out in the world that will never be able to sit in on an interview like that,
Sure.
whether they're applying themselves, whether the opportunity presents itself, but just the way things kind of fell at that time.
Mhm.
I am so grateful. I would say trends that I noticed is interviewers
Mhm.
that were prepared. And by prepared, I mean like they had a few questions they knew they had to ask,
Mhm.
but I mean, they knew that candidate.
Mhm.
When they walked in, they already knew their resume. Yeah, they had a copy. Yeah, they
Sure.
had their cover letter. Yeah, they
Mhm.
were the third interview of the week, but
Mhm.
they knew that candidate. They brought up things that were on their LinkedIn. They
Mhm.
brought up their family if they found them on Facebook or
Sure.
something along the sorts.
Mhm.
Um, and the confidence in how they speak, how they sat, the
Mhm.
direct eye contact.
Mhm.
I also witnessed a lot of interviewees, ones that were over prepared,
Mhm.
that, it kind of seemed like, okay, this is my third interview this week.
Mhm.
Thank you for the time, but, I might have a job tomorrow.
Mhm.
I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And you know what? I hope you do get a job.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm trying to talk to you so we can give you that
Mhm.
job.
Sure.
But there was also interviewees that were, they had all the right components.
Mhm.
They had their notebook, they had their pen, they had a water in case their voice choked up,
Mhm.
but they were underdressed.
Mhm.
Or they would look at you and then kind of go off to the side and then zone out and go, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? And it's either they're locked in or they're on
Yep.
overflow or
Yep.
the interviewer asks them a question and they have
Mm.
no idea what that is.
What am I having for lunch later?
That's exactly what I said earlier.
Uh-huh.
But I picked up on the social cues of the
Mhm.
people in there. But another thing, at least in your case,
Mhm.
on the interviews I sat in with you,
Mhm.
I learned a lot about your role,
Mhm.
your department, the goals that you had for have had for your
Mhm.
department. And
Mhm.
like there was a picture being painted.
Mhm.
So as I'm there taking the notes, I'm like, don't get locked into what he just said, just write it down and move
Mhm.
on. But I would love to
Mhm.
go back through, reread my notes to go, wow, like this is great. Let me make this note and go,
Mhm.
hey, how was this? I know you
You
talked
did
about
that once or
this.
twice.
And
Yep.
what was the update? Because
Mhm.
I genuinely
Mhm.
was so like took by it.
Yep.
One thing specific IT that I learned a lot about is
Mhm.
applications versus infrastructure. Those are big words. Those are big, big
Mhm.
clouds and a big, beautiful sky, and they have multiples.
Yep.
And when you start dabbling into that, I mean,
Mhm.
do they both work together in some means? Of course.
Sure.
One thing does one thing for another. They both work under one
Yep.
main cloud. but they're so different.
Mhm.
And there's so many different little teardrops that come out of those clouds that
Yeah.
just spread over all of IT. That is
Mhm.
a beast. And
Yep.
you are amazing for being in that realm, because in an interview alone, I remember there was one point, I think I actually told you in the interview, you guys, you sound like robots. Like, I'm here
Mhm.
and I'm hearing it, but
Mhm.
it's a different language. And I'm not talking like C plus or Python. I'm talking about, I have no idea what you just said, but the fact that that other individual laughed, I know
Uh-huh.
they're there with you.
Yep.
And that was so
Keeping up.
impactful because
Mhm.
number one, it's different from what I was doing.
Mhm.
But number two, I was learning and I loved it. And reviewing the notes and then sending them and hearing about the follow up, it was a lot. And there was times where the interviewers, and if they had like a special guest, like from the same department or across, they would ask me, "What did you think?"
Mhm.
So I'm like, "Give me a second to rescan my notes," because I just was writing the words.
Right.
And then I rescan it. I'm like, "You actually want my opinion?"
Mhm.
So then I would give a HR opinion. I would give a entry level role position. I would give Megan Elizabeth opinion. You know, I kind of just, I liked this, I didn't like this, and I didn't like this because I was looking for more of this, or I feel you're looking for this. And they would appreciate that and kind of talk through to go, I see why you would think this, but we're looking for this. It was constant learning. And it was different aspects throughout the whole credit union. So it helped me in the company I was in to really learn not only what the goal is, but what each individual smart person who has obtained their role for a reason,
Yep.
what's their goal and what are they doing?
So you have kind of an interesting perspective because you've sat in on teller interviews and professional interviews, and so I'm curious. We talked earlier about about me, which is one of my favorite topics, but we talked about how I like to sort of help people and try to encourage them, whether it's learning about finances and stuff like that. But as an HR professional who's sat in a lot of interviews, here's your opportunity to kind of share what you've learned over the last few years with, maybe with the people from your generation or younger about what should you do, what should you not do, what should you say, what should you not say, how should you prepare for an interview. So, you know, give me like, give me like your three top, good and bad things that you've
Okay.
seen in an interview.
First, before I do that, I do want to say I myself to this day, I still get the sweaty pits. My hands will start shaking
Sure.
randomly. I
Yep.
can't feel, my fingertips, they get cold.
Yep.
I stutter.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden I talk way too much and I have word vomit.
Yep.
And then I'm like, am I sweating or did something happen? Am I passing out? That still happens, even if I'm just sitting there observing and I feel like, okay, I am in an important meeting right now. Let
So
me lock
what should a
in.
candidate do if they're in that situation? Like I'm a candidate, I'm nervous
Yeah.
about this interview. Like, should I acknowledge it? Should I just, just suck it up and just try to get through it?
Well, one of the things I used to tell people all the time is I would talk to them on the phone to say, hey, the hiring manager would love to bring you in for an interview. What's your availability? They'd get giddy. They'd get nervous. They would go, oh, God, what do I do? What do I wear? And I'm like, okay, number one, take a breath. Number two, pat yourself on the back because they want to talk to you. There are many times that you're going to forget. There were resumes that automatically just got filtered out by a system alone or by a quick glance, or someone goes, oh, this one might be great, but we're going to bring this one in. You were that one that they selected. And for those that don't really know about applicant tracking systems, many applicants, many resumes come in just like that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's to the point where you were that diamond in the rough. They found you. They like you. You've already made
It's a big hurdle.
that first impression. Now, what to wear? Can't go wrong with a business professional or business casual. And by casual, do not show up in jeans. But, present yourself well, but don't go over the top.
Right.
Don't try to oversell yourself, especially if you are doing a more kind of relaxed role in a, let's say, retail store.
Sure.
You don't need to come in a business suit. Kind of go visit the place. Look at where it is ahead of time. Look at what people are wearing when they go in and out. And I'm not talking about your everyday customer member. I mean, walk in, look at the person at the desk, see what they've got. I am a fan of taking notes, as you've said. I'm a great note taker. Bring a little pad and
You're a
paper.
freak.
Thank you. And the thing is no one will ever fault you to go, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take some notes real quick.
Mhm.
If you're having racing thoughts and you know, I wanted to ask about benefits,
Yep.
I want to ask about PTO, write that down ahead of
Sure.
time.
Yep.
I am one of those that I'll wait till the very end to go, hey, I
Mhm.
have a few questions.
Yeah.
Fun fact, they have answered those questions throughout the interview, and I just blanked on
Yep.
them and I don't remember.
Check. We covered that.
But when I look back over them, I'll go,
Mhm.
okay, they answered that. This was this.
Mhm.
And that way they know I care enough to
Right.
really understand.
Oh yeah.
I'm also the person, I print off the job description if
Mhm.
it's available.
Yep.
I read through and highlight things that I didn't understand. At the time for me in HR, I knew nothing about a PHR or SHRM or SHRM SCP. So I remember I bracketed that off. I asked my manager, is this an expectation? I see it's preferred, but is this an expectation?
Right.
And if it is, how do I get there? I know nothing about it. What
Yep.
would you like me to do? And I mean, they were glad I asked. They gave examples, they gave me resources, and they said, if this is something that you want to do, we have this opportunity, just talk it through, let me know.
Sure.
So that automatically eased me, said, okay, they heard me, I heard them, let's move on. If you're sitting there, they ask you a question you weren't expected to answer of, what do you like about the company? Oh crap. I know the role. I know the hourly pay.
I really want the job.
I don't know
That's what I know
anything
your
about
company.
this company. I saw it on LinkedIn. It
Right.
said it was within my price range, and that's why I clicked it. Be honest. Say, you know, I need to do more research, but right now what I like is you're talking to me like a person.
Yep.
I'm being honest. I don't know much, but I'm willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
There's never really a wrong answer, in my opinion.
Okay.
It's just how you handle it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know something, go, I don't know, but I want to learn, and that's why I'm here.
Okay.
I can read, I can write, I can research on my own. And then talk about, are you a hands-on learner? Are you a visual person? Do I need to sit next to you all day and then do a test and show you I can do it? Do I need to do it with you? And then when you start to talk about what you know, which is yourself, you can kind of tweak the answers to work for what they're looking for. So they could say something along the lines of, well, Megan, you're trying to be a sign language interpreter. How long have you been professionally interpreting? Technically, I do not have my own interpreting company. So by professional, do you mean I'm volunteering, been in school, worked with professionals? So I could say, I have been professionally out and about in ASL Hangouts for over 5 years. I have worked multiple cases in multiple avenues. I have many deaf and interpreter and hard of hearing contacts. So when you say, how long have I been doing this? I've been doing this a long time. If you would like me to get further in the details, I'd be happy to explain. I also have multiple references. I'd be willing to speak on that. So I would just say, trust yourself because you know more than you think that you do.
Okay.
And just talk slow. If you have to stand up, straighten your shirt, sit back down. Amazingly, that helps a lot. I've done it many times.
Okay. What's something that me as an employer, you know, and that was good info. I'm
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm wondering, what can I do as, you know, a manager or as a hiring manager? What can hiring managers in general do? And this is kind of going back to the generational stuff again a little bit. What can we do to kind of meet your generation or the younger ones? What can we do to help them find their career, find their gig? Like, you know, get them, I don't want to say get them out of the service industry, but get them into the professional environment so that they're in something that they like to do, they want to do, they see themselves doing for the rest of your life. I don't know that a whole lot of people get into the service industry hoping to be a, you know, a waitress or a hostess for the rest of their lives. I mean, there are people that I'm sure do it, but how, you know, how can somebody in a professional environment help, you know, somebody who's just starting out with their first gig, you know, establish and find that career? How do you do that?
Mentorship.
Okay.
Internship. And I'm not talking about you being a mentor for someone, reaching out to them once a month on a Zoom call.
Sure.
Or on a Teams to go, hey, how are things going? What's going well for you? What's not? I'm talking about physically have me in your office. I work with you for a day. Everything you do, I do. I hear the conversations. I sit in on the meetings. Or I look at the schedule that's up on the board to go, hey, I see you've got this, this, and this going on this week. What are your plans for that? Now, if you have a blabbermouth, a yapper like me, maybe you don't want me to see
I'm
your
getting
schedule.
nothing done today.
I'd be like, I was going to do that and now you're here. But I'm
Uh-huh.
saying, that direct, like hands-on, you see what I see, and in a way, like respect them enough to go, hey, I've got this. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you've done that with me
Mhm.
and it had nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
But you said, hey, I want to pick your brain on this.
Mhm.
I wanted to see what you thought about this, this, and this. And I remember there were a few things I had typed up,
Mhm.
saved, retweaked, sent it back to you. You responded again. I retweeted again and then sent it through.
Mhm.
That did so much for me that you have no idea.
Okay.
And that is something that I think our generation needs. We kind of need it broken down in a way, like I mentioned earlier, that
Mhm.
we can digest, that we can understand.
Okay.
So, for example, you in the
Mhm.
IT realm, if you're going to have an entry level opening, maybe have one of those entry level people who have been there
Mhm.
in a respectable amount of time, of course,
Sure.
but have them sit in
Mhm.
and then tell that person who's already been in that role, talk to that person. I'm going to ask my questions, but then, hey, for the last 10 minutes of the interview, I'm going to go start typing my notes. Ask them something.
Mhm.
Let them ask you, hey, you're doing my job. Do you like it? What's the day to day? What is your favorite thing
Mhm.
about the role? Because they might not be able to say something when their boss is sitting right here. But
Right.
when he steps out to go, hey, this
Mhm.
job is hard. You're going to need to know this, this, and this, but here are some resources.
Mm.
And even if this isn't the best fit for you, this is where you can go.
Okay.
I think if I had that opportunity in multiple jobs or
Mhm.
situations, I feel like that would have helped
Mm.
in certain realms. But I would say be physically present, give them real data to look at, pick their brain, get their opinion, because what us younger people like, how your favorite topic is to talk about yourself. We love to talk about ourselves and our
Mhm.
struggles and our goals and once we achieve things. So if I get to go home to go, hey, Mom, I had an interview at First Advantage today, but you know what I did? I sat in on this, I mean, it wouldn't be, but this corporate meeting.
Mhm.
I sat in on this departmental meeting, and whether or not you sign a disclosure of confidentiality, of course,
Mhm.
but it gets to the point of I learned about this major thing that they're doing.
Mhm.
I'm so excited to do so.
Okay.
And I know at least a while ago there was an internship kind of program that was in the works.
Okay.
But I think if there is one that is set up for 4 to 6 weeks for that entry level person,
Mhm.
but a 3 to 6 months could change someone's life. And
Sure.
that could be that temp to hire
Mhm.
person where you're like, hey, this is a diamond in the rough. We're going to mold them. Or, hey, they're not there yet, but let's give them this project. Work
Mhm.
with me on this. Let's see what you
Mhm.
can do.
Okay.
Whether it's paid or not paid, or it goes with their schooling,
Mhm.
I think that would change the lives.
That's good stuff. What's next for you? What are your plans?
Well, fun fact,
Mhm.
I have looked into what we call video relay servicing, which is like an online kind of computer tech interpreting,
Interesting.
doing phone calls,
Mhm.
video chats.
Mhm.
A lot of times if you have a deaf person who
Mhm.
uses an interpreter phone,
Mhm.
I'm deaf.
Mhm.
You call me.
Mhm.
Well, over here, Megan G picks up the phone
Mhm.
and Megan G goes, give me one moment, I'm connecting you. And you go, okay. And then you hear, hi, or you'll hear nothing because I'm
Mhm.
signing, hey, Jason, what's going on? And then you hear a different voice that goes, hey, Jason, what's going on? And then
Oh, I
you'll
gotcha.
go, hey, I think I saw your dog on the street. Is he out of the yard?
So you're signing you like in a Teams or something with somebody a deaf person, and you're basically relaying the call.
Correct.
Oh,
So
interesting.
if you were to call Megan F and
Mhm.
Megan G is the interpreter,
Mhm.
you'd be talking to Megan F, but then someone else would be doing the hand signs. And then I
Gotcha.
sign back to that interpreter, the
Uh-huh.
interpreter voices it to you. But it's
Ah,
a delayed service. It could be quick servicing.
right.
It's a lot of like training online in
Mhm.
regards to like showing a video and me voicing it
Right.
from deaf to hearing worlds.
Mhm.
I'm looking into that, which is actually very exciting. That will be starting soon.
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of things in the community with the deaf and hard of hearing and the interpreters all throughout the 7 cities.
Mhm.
And
So is
with
that your jam now? Like, I mean, you're still doing the HR thing.
yeah.
Did the service thing.
Yeah.
I mean, ASL's a service.
Well, it all kind of blends together
Mhm.
because There's deaf people everywhere.
Sure.
They pop up.
Mm-hmm.
They find me.
Mm-hmm.
They will show up with my name and
Mhm.
on my business card. It
Mhm.
says deaf friendly ASL proficient
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I am. I am
Mhm.
friendly towards the deaf. I am proficient to the point if you have a question in ASL,
Mhm.
I know enough to ask you how to clarify and what to do to answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I put that on everything.
Hmm.
And in the deaf community, if one deaf person knows you, all the deaf people know you. And it's wonderful
Mhm.
because they show up, they ask questions, they're
Right.
excited, they want to know your story, where you're
Mhm.
from, what you're doing. I want to do that for the rest of my life, for sure. I
Okay.
want to teach my kids sign language.
Mhm.
My significant other, he
Mhm.
is now semi-fluent. You
Ah.
can never fully be fluent
Mhm.
because it's an ever-changing language, and I myself would never be fluent.
Mm.
But he is semi-fluent, and
Mm.
it's to the point where when we go out, if I have a night that I'm really trying to work on my skills, no voice,
Really?
out in public, and it's
It's like
amazing.
an immersion thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So I mean, if you had the opportunity to do, ASL stuff, signing, whatever that looks like for the rest of your life, and maybe not the HR stuff, you'd be fine with that?
Yes, but I'm also looking for both
Okay.
because you can do both.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, deaf people need jobs.
Yeah, they have human resource departments. So, I mean, it's just going to depend on what realm. Am I doing that in a food service industry? Probably not. I do agree that the food service is nice. It's flexible.
Sure.
I know going in a week what I can make and what I can't make
Right.
during the holiday
It's a 20-year-old
season.
job too.
Yeah.
Like if you're,
And that's
in your
the
20s.
thing, because now that I've been the manager at a restaurant, when I see all the younger ones that are just starting out as
Yep.
hostess and bartenders,
Mhm.
and I hear their first world problems,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I've checked out. I'm not there.
Yep.
And I love them for that. And they're growing and they're learning. And
That's it.
if they have questions, I'm
Yep.
here.
Mhm.
But when they start, let's go home.
Yep,
Because
time to
at
go.
this point,
Thank you for joining me. You are my first in-studio guest on my brand new chairs in front of my brand new table. And thank you for being here.
thank you for having me.